This is what I was alluding to earlier when they were trying to find people for this Challenger Tour. So starting next year, I'm guessing there's going to be that fall qualification series that goes directly into this, right? That's kind of the plan.
I would think some quasi form of that last chance series is going to start to take place at the end of 2027.
Well, if you were on Live, there's your chance. You're in that. And you can qualify for the Challenger Series. If you win into that, you can get back up in 2 years' time. That's your penalty. And you got to play. Hey, Bryson, you got to go play at Myrtle Beach if you want to get back on the PGA Tour. Now, if he wins a major, which he'll still be in, then he can get his automatic qualification back in. Everything. This is such an easy pathway with really no downside because you're going to need the bodies to fill out these events. Abe Answer, this is where you're going. Bryson, this is where you're going. DJ, this is where you're going. If you don't want to do it, great, whatever. You don't have to play. But if you want to play on the PGA Tour, this is the pathway back. Fall Series qualification into the Challenger Tour. You're good on that. You're back on the big tour.
At Mayo Experience.
This is the final word on the Travelers Championship on the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog. All right? Keith Stewart from readtheline.com is with me right now. If you want to get all of Keith's picks and breakdown, hit his newsletter that's down in the description. If you want a cheat sheet from this show that gets released on Wednesday afternoon with just the picks, the Mayo Media newsletter down there for free as well. Mayo Media on Substack. Keith, you're at TPC River Highlands right now, and you listen to Brian Rolap's full report on what the changes to the schedule are going to be. Would you like to recap that for the people pretty quickly?
I'll do my best to do it quickly, Pat. There was a lot to unpack from what Brian had to say. And good afternoon from what looks to be a very rain-soaked TPC River Highlands. We'll get to that more in a moment. Plenty of action here and tons of media on a Tuesday, which is very unlike, a lot of these tour stops, even of the signature variety. But I guess I could break it down in a couple different ways. My overarching theme in listening to what Brian had to say, and then talking to a number of the vice presidents from the tour to get more clarification on where things are going as far as the setup and what events we are going to have you and I to cover that are meaningful. And what I think at the end of the day is that we are going to have more meaningful events with which to cover, which I think is a really good thing for our world. So if you're into watching golf, if you're into wagering on golf, it's all good news. The fact that there are simultaneous events, it's not my problem or your problem to figure out where to put them on TV or how to manage all of that. We cover the events. I know you cover dual weeks, when it's Puerto Rico up against API or, something like that, Myrtle Beach up against Quail Hollow, So I think at the end of the day, the championship series, which will now be the track one, and they called that a working title. So don't get too fixed on the championship series, maybe. But the championship series is going to have 24 events inclusive of the four majors and the Players Championship. And then there's going to be a second tour, or track two, which is called the Challenger Series. That's going to have 20 events. They're going to run from February to August. And 7 of those events are going to run on their own. So if you're doing the math, that means up top in the championship series, there are going to be 7 weeks off between February and the Tour Championship toward the end of August or Labor Day weekend.
And there has not been a restructuring of the playoffs as of yet, but I believe after next year, FedEx is out as I think their 30-year contract or 20-year contract on the FedEx Cup. So I would expect to see the playoffs formatted a lot differently too.
The other 2 big points that they brought up today, one was the playoffs. So it's going to go down to what they are saying, a 2-week playoff system where the guys come in and play. And there was a lot of talk about match play, not what kind of match play, whether it's just straight match play head to head, which what we're used to in the Ryder Cup and the President's Cup in singles matches, or if it would be some form of like medal play match play, which is, you play your whole round, which would be better for TV, would be better for getting the better players through. That would be the format that they would use. But it seems to me, if I was reading the tea leaves, that they're going to use 1 week of stroke play to try to qualify for a very small subset of players that are then going to go on to the match play version of the Tour Championship. Now, they were very particular to say that the regular season champion is the Tour champion. And then this Tour Championship was a separate entity in and of itself. So one of the interesting rumors that I'm hearing is that they did say that the finals was going to move around and it was going to be at a place that people wouldn't expect. And I know there have been some posts online about some wild places like Pine Valley or Cypress or something. But the truth of the matter is that those are the type of venues that they're talking about. And I said, well, how would you get fans there? How would you do, they were like, we're not really worried about fans for the match play. Don't take this out of context or out of proportion, folks. They are still worried about the fans, but they're looking to make a made-for-TV event for the match play finals, and they would take it to a place. One of the popular names I heard was Bandon Dunes or something similar to like that. A popular place in golf pop culture right now that they could put these guys on, and then they could have a match play finals for the Tour Championship that would just raise a ton of attention. And they're looking at doing something like that. So to answer your question about the Tour Championship, that was the third of 4 different things that they talked about today: the Champ Series, the Challenger Series, the Tour Championship, and the final thing is the fall.
And the fall is going to become an international series?
So this is interesting. And as Brian was talking, and we got all of this paperwork that came out like 5 minutes before the press conference started, this big PDF with all like the frequently asked questions of what all of this meant. It wasn't clear to me what they were doing in the fall. There are 2 pieces to the fall. Well, really 3 if you count Q School, which is going to move, but I'll get to that in a second. But the fall is going to consist of 2 different things. There's going to be 2 to 3, maybe even 4 international events. And those are going to be played with guys from the championship series and guys that have earned the right through the regular season to move up from challenger to championship. So think of, these are going to be established events from what I gather here, right? So you're thinking about the Bay Current or what was the Zozo, like that will still exist. Maybe something like if the RBC Canadian Open doesn't get elevated up to the championship series, this would be a nice spot for it to sit, because then they could get championship series members in that event.
So just for that, because Jeff had mentioned the same thing to me about the Canadian Open. From all the word coming out of Golf Canada is that they have assurances that it will be a part of the championship series, only because where are you going to play golf in Canada in the fall?
I mean, the fall could be September. So
that could work
again. And a lot of this, Pat, was a bit of a word salad today, where you ask a question, I'll get into in a minute the question that I asked, because I was very, very curious about how they were going to build this Challenger Series. And I didn't really get much of an answer, because they felt like they drew a line in the sand and they had to come out with something here at the Travelers where they said that we're going to talk about something substantial for the new schedule. Well, all of this, since I didn't mention this already, all of this takes place in 2028. But what made me say that about the Canadian event is that, they're talking about established international events. So maybe the Mexico Open, maybe the Canadian Open. Again, this is speculation on my part. The Bay Current or the Zozo, getting the championship series guys in the fall 1 or 2 times out of the United States to try to push this, global sort of reach of the PGA Tour. And it would happen, sometime in September, October. And then quickly following that, you're going to have a last chance series. Now, this will not include those that have already qualified for the championship series, because these will be your guys that were in the Challenger Series or below that have earned the right to get in these events. And then they'll have 4 to 6 events there to try to be, the last 10 to 20 players that get those special cards for the championship series for the next calendar year. Now, with all of that going on in the fall, they're talking about taking Q School. Well, they are. They're going to move Q School to start earlier in the summer, because basically once the kids come out of college, they want to have another pathway, and for players that are on the mini tours to start that process so that they're not waiting until just December to have the finals of Q School. They would like to have the finals of Q School before they start the last chance, so that anyone that doesn't get through there and can qualify for one of those last chance series events, that everyone has this sort of open opportunity with meritocracy to try to fight their way into this championship series. And of course, the people that don't make it all the way into that, the next subset are going to go into the Challenger Series, which for a lot of guys, whether they're on the Corn Ferry or if they're university players that are recently graduated, that will also be a very nice tour. I mean, $4 million purses for 20 separate events where your schedule. For just to give you an idea, a Corn Ferry event right now is like 1.5 million. An LPGA Tour event is around 2.5 to 3 million. So these are good events. These are where Corrales and Puerto Rico were, $4 million purse maybe about 5 years ago. So the Challenger Series Tour is going to be very interesting, and especially when they feature the events that are on those 7 off weeks.
We'll try to figure out when those go. The tour is also talking about getting into more major markets, be it New York, Boston, Philadelphia, Chicago, Houston. I mean, they're already in Houston. We'll figure out different places for that. The seeing of new courses a lot as a part of this championship series and even moving them around. Do you think that, the match play is interesting if they rotate the Tour Championship and do it that way? Because I do think that's an easier pathway to get in to some of these courses, whether it be Bandon, Pine Valley, that if you only have 16 guys showing up, the footprint isn't quite as much as a standard tournament. Therefore, the clubs might be a bit more open to it.
Yeah, when they talked about the footprint off to the side about the Tour Championship, it was a very small footprint. And they said, Keith, if you're talking about this, just, we're going to err on the side of being conservative. So where we might want to see this thing expand to 32 players or maybe even 64 in a bracket in the Tour Championship, there's going to be a number of years before we get to that. It's going to be something where 16 players go to a very selective site with maybe 2,000 or 3,000, maybe 5,000 fans on, that are there. You're on the right track there, pardon the pun, but it's intended, of where the Tour Championship is going to go. They really want to turn this into a made-for-TV event for the fans and kind of show off some of, the relevancy of the tour in using some of these, like a Sand Valley or Abandoned Dunes, where all of these golf fans are going, and they want to see their favorite, tour players compete rather than maybe TPC Craig Ranch, not to give out a drive-by, but it would make more sense to me. I'd rather see the guys go play, Whistling Straits in the Tour Championship than I would rather them see another TPC golf course.
So 120 players in each of these championship series events. Top 65 in ties are going to make the cuts. No sponsors exemption, which I thought was really strange, because how is the in-season, or have they ironed this out yet, of the in-season promotion going to work? I did hear if you win twice on the Challenger Tour, that gives you an automatic upgrade, almost like the old Corn Ferry Tour rule. I think Jason Gore took advantage of that one time, where you won 3 events on the Corn Ferry, you got automatic promotion. But will there be different benchmarks throughout the course of the season? Like after the first, if there's 20 Challenger Series Tour events, after the first 5, do you take the top 5 from that and promote them, or are you just there all year long?
There was no talk of that, Pat, and I don't see that happening at all. I think once you're in the Challenger Series, you're going to stay there for the entirety of the 20 season-long events, except for 2 reasons. You brought up one, which is if you win twice, then you were going to get an immediate bump. So the next week, if there was an event, you could go up. The second one was basically the Aaron Rye rule. If you go win a major, you're going to make the championship series. So everyone forgets, but Aaron Rye played Myrtle Beach the week before he won at Aronimink. And then, if this situation or this schedule or this track system had already existed, then he would have went back down to the Challenger Series, and nobody wants to see that happen. There's not going to be a ton of movement, but those are definitely 2 outlier cases where guys will be able to jump up. And as we're talking about the Challenger Series for a minute, so I asked Roll-App in the press conference, in the first year, I was wondering what the process would be to build out the initial Challenger Series Tour. In years 2, 3, and 4, there could be all sorts of qualifying, but where are they going to get? Because the field size for the Challenger Series is going to be 144 if they could do it with daylight. So 75% of that Tour Series is going to be 144 players. Well, where are those guys coming from? There's roughly 315 guys that have their tour card, and we know what's at the bottom end of that list. That's a lot of those past champions that wear 2 gloves, or, guys that are names that, that they pull out in Bermuda or they pull out in the Black Desert in the fall. My question was, are they using those names in order to build out this tour, or are they going to take more people off of the Corn Ferry Tour and kind of abridge the 2, and what would be the proportions of all of that? Because 144 players is a lot of players. So they start in with, we've got PGA Tour U, we've got this, we got that. I'm going, you're not even at 50 yet. Where are you getting these other 100 guys from? And our hope and my hope would be that, they're going to pull these guys up from the Corn Ferry Tour. We want the young, Johnny Kiefers of the world. I definitely don't want to hang on to I don't want to mention any names because I don't want to give anybody any drive-bys, but guys that are basically using all of their past champion status, their career money list status, all of that. It's time for the tour to tell those guys like, hey, it's either Champs Tour or it's maybe figure something else out. So they led me to believe that they would probably lean towards younger, although it would be very difficult at the pack level. And Lucas Glover is going to have his hands full that those guys aren't going to have as many, as many opportunities if they do lean young. At the end of the day, Pat, knowing the tour, they'll probably go 50-50 from both sides. But I was very interested in how they're going to fill out those fields in 2028. And hey, at the start of 2027, all the guys will know where they're going to fall, but there's still a ton of places there. And there aren't many guys like maybe you and I can name, but the average fan can't name a lot of guys that are over top 150 on the money list year after year. And that's where a majority of those guys are coming from.
Well, that would make more sense then probably to have the past champions and guys with a bit more notable names get into some of these fields, even if you reserve 3 to 5 spots, 3 to 10 spots for Webb Simpson. And I mean, it's going to be Lucas Glover eventually. So maybe he's going to look out for his own interests in this spot or get VJ into that field. If you're going to be playing these off-brand events, if you are right that you're going to have so many of these guys, be they Corn Ferry guys, maybe like what happens to the 10 guys that earn their spot for the PGA Tour through the DP World Tour every year? Are they automatically challenger? Are they automatically champion? How does that work?
When it came to who goes where and how many people go where, there was a strict answer today. We haven't worked all of that out yet.
We don't know.
And we don't know. Like that's why I mentioned it was a bit of a word salad at times. If you went down that road and you got real specific, you were going to get they were going to pump the brakes and they were going to back you up a little bit. That's the direction that golf media is going to go. They want to learn about how all the human interest stories are going to play out. And there are a number of different pathways right now. When you do count the 10 guys from the DP World Tour, when you do count PGA TOUR University, when you do count the Corn Ferry Tour graduates. So when you start bringing all of those together, that's why I was looking for a blueprint of the Challenger Series, because that's basically going to become the melting pot. And then this place with the easiest route with which to get to that championship series, which is going to give out 90 cards per year. And then the rest, throughout the course of the season. And then the rest of those, 30 spots are going to be earned through the last chance. And then some of these other alternative pathways. I do think that with their partnership with the DP World Tour, that maybe a couple of those guys off the top of that tour are going to go directly into the Champ Series.
Yeah, you'd probably, if it was me, and maybe this is a different show that we can do if we don't know yet, is try to really blueprint this out of what they should do. But instead of offering up 10 spots from the DP World Tour, you offer up 20 spots, and the top 5 go to Champions League, or I guess the Champions, whatever the hell they're calling it, and then go to then the other 15
Series.
Go to the Challenger. And then maybe you make that same sort of thing with the PGA Tours of America. The winner can go to get their challenge, or maybe they go to the champ, like Michael Brennan from last year. He got his win in Utah, got himself into these events, but he won that tour. He was going to be at least on the Corn Ferry anyway. You create a similar pathway to Corn Ferry where the winner of Corn Ferry gets to skip the Challenger, gets to move up. I think there should be incentive for doing really well, but for 2028, there's a very logical solution to a lot of the tour's problems that this Challenger Tour can really, really fix for them, isn't there?
There absolutely is. And that gets me back to my overarching theme for the day, which is that you and I are going to have more meaningful events to cover. It's not all going to be figured out this week, and certainly it's going to continue to get speculated upon. The next update is going to come at the 2026 Tour Championship at Atlanta. More of this kind of category / pathway / eligibility, the way you go back and forth. One of the things I thought was interesting today, though, was that, and you're aware of this, and you and I have discussed this many times before, is that it can get confusing with the FedEx Cup, with secondary events, with regular season events, and when it comes to the Signature Series events, that there's all these different amounts of points that are available to the guys and how they earn their top 70 spots right now in order to get into the playoffs, or the top 100 in order to get their card for 2027. When you're in the Champ Series, every event's going to have the same amount of points. When you're in the Challenger Series, separate, but every event is going to have the same amount of points. So it's going to be easier and much more succinct to kind of look at those charts and say, hey, where do these guys stand a chance, and where do they position themselves? They wanted to do that for the players. They wanted to do it for the fans. They wanted to do it for the media. I think getting back to your point you just made a second ago is that a lot of these kind of complaints that we've had or just like categorical like issues, trying to figure all this stuff out as the season takes place, and try to build storylines are going to kind of wash away a little bit, and things are going to become much more streamlined, which I think at the end of the day is a home run. If we have more meaningful events with which to watch and to bet on, then for me, I mean, I think that's a home run. And people say, well, Keith, then you've got to write more stories, or, hey, maybe I could hire more people to write stories. Like we could grow our businesses by having an opportunity to cover more meaningful things. And one last thing, as I look down at my notes here that I wanted to cover, when you think of the breaks, I had an interesting conversation about that. And I said, well, the breaks are going to come the week after majors. And they said, well, not necessarily. That's when viewership is very high because the majors gain a lot of ancillary interest. And then the next week, people tend to watch a lot more of that next event. And then it kind of dwindles as they get to the next major. It builds up to a crescendo. And there, the person that I talked to said from the tour in an official capacity, her commentary was along the lines of, think about where the breaks are right now. So if Pat, I said to you, like, where's the first place on the schedule back in 2026 where you were like, man, this event is really on life support. It has nobody coming. It's at a popular spot that's been on the tour forever. What would be your answer to that question?
What was the week after Heritage? Zurich. I don't mind that event, but there's a difference, I think, between fatigue of fans not showing up for an event, fatigue from the players, or just when people get fatigued from too much golf. And that's post Masters is when that happens. Everything else before that is like, all right, this is great. We're leading towards the Masters. And then you kind of blow your load at the Masters. You get the Heritage. I wish it wasn't in that spot, but that's where it is. And then for like even we saw it with Doral, like no one cared.
So that's exactly what they were talking about. When you got to Zurich, everyone took a break. And that would be a logical spot for a break. When you thought about the West Coast, the guys played 3 events in a row. They played both Signature, they played WMPO, and then next thing you know, the Cognizant had no one show up. That would be a time for a break. And what they want to try to do is take something like the Cognizant and give it one of those 7 weeks off. A mainstay event that people know, they want to give those events the opportunity. Whether they do it or not will be their choice or the sponsor's choice. But those are the events that they want to kind of feature with those 7 weeks off where the guys are already naturally taking a break. The way they make it sound is that the schedule is going to look and feel a lot similar for the championship series as it does right now. And then there's just going to be breaks when guys are just done playing 3 weeks in a row.
I like this. The quick change that I will give my free opinion on this. They can feel free to take this. The winners of all, they should try to hype up those 7 events that are in the bye weeks as more meaningful than the actual events to try to give it, even if it's faux prestige, give it the faux prestige. But anyone who wins those events should be automatically upgraded.
I mean, you got my vote. Yeah. I mean, anything that makes the Challenger Series events more meaningful.
Yeah.
Makes it better for you and I and everyone else that's out there covering golf. It just doesn't have to be about wagering. It could be everyone from, the different media platforms. Golf's in a very popular place. And I think what they're trying to do here is try to streamline some things, make it easier for people to understand, and mimic some other leagues that have been very, very popular, whether it's the English Premier League and relegation happens at the end of the year, you get your full season to give it a shot. And we're just used to so many traditions, and a number of those are just going to be thrown out the window. And I personally, I think it's good. You mentioned earlier there was a little bit of pushback at the championship series level about not having sponsors exemptions. Well, like we don't have sponsors exemptions for, other types of sports where, someone sponsors a specific event, whether it be in any of the other professional sports, and they say, well, then this person gets to play in this event or at this level. So I get their rationale for trying to limit all of that. They're really trying to create a tour that everyone earns their way on and earns their place to stay and has real relegation so that there's some movement, so that there's some drama, and that, what happens if, remember a couple of years ago, Guys like Justin Thomas didn't make the playoffs, or Ricky Fowler had his slump. And, like a big name like that goes down to the Challenger Series, and that guy goes and wins 2 events because he works really hard to get back up to the Champ Series. Man, that's a terrific story, and one that'd be a lot of fun to cover.
It is, and there's also provisions that need to come into this, like what happens if a player gets injured? How does the injury exemption work in that time? Like, let's say Cam Young gets injured, hurts his wrist, and he is now saying, like, this time next year, or he does it in February of next year, he's out for the entire year. It's like, well, this is a guy that won the Players 2 years ago, was third in the FedEx Cup coming into the year. There needs to be protections for those guys. 90 seems way too many to carry over, though, from 120. Like, I get that's the player protection. That's going to be the outcome of all of this, these guaranteed incomes, because if you miss the cut now, you're not just going to show up and get your money, which I love. I love the bigger fields. Feels like that number should be like 75. Give people more ways to get onto this tour.
Now, I would agree with you on that. I love competitive chaos. I would love there to be more up and down and more guys fighting for their life. I think that for their career lives, for their playing career lives, to be clear. I mean, I think all of that would be much more exciting. But at the end of the day, I think in the beginning, they needed to go on the conservative side there. All of a sudden, these guys are going to have 24 events to play. Who knows if Rory will even get to like 13 on the PGA Tour this year, and he needs to get to 15. So I think there's a balance there, and I think they're doing a decent job of trying to figure all that out, Pat.
The other part of this, too, this is what I was alluding to earlier when they were trying to find people for this Challenger Tour. So starting next year, I'm guessing there's going to be that fall qualification series that goes directly into this, right? That's kind of the plan?
I would think some quasi form of that last chance series is going to start to take place at the end of 2027.
Well, if you were on Live, there's your chance. You're in that. And you can qualify for the Challenger Series. If you win into that, you can get back up in 2 years' time. That's your penalty. And you got to play. Hey, Bryson, you got to go play at Myrtle Beach if you want to get back on the PGA Tour. Now, if he wins a major, which he'll still be in, then he can get his automatic qualification back in. Everything. This is such an easy pathway with really no downside, because you're going to need the bodies to fill out these events. Abe Answer, this is where you're going. Bryson, this is where you're going. DJ, this is where you're going. If you don't want to do it, great, whatever. You don't have to play. But if you want to play on the PGA Tour, this is the pathway back. Fall Series qualification into the Challenger Tour. You're good on that. You're back on the big tour.
I was wondering how all of that was going to play out this year when Brooks came back and how quickly he'd be able to get signature status.
Do you think he knew? Do you think they told him, like, hey, if you do this, like, you might, this is what we're thinking about in the future. If this goes down, you might want to get back now. Hence probably why Patrick Reed did it too.
I mean, the golf world's a small world. Somebody had to know that the PIF plug was getting pulled sooner or later. Somebody knew at the highest level. They had to, right? I mean, but I don't know. That's not answering your question. Like, let me take a step back. When they sat down with Brooks, if I was on the PGA Tour side, I don't know that I would have explained everything. I would have just said, hey, you can do the math on your own. This is what it's going to take to qualify for Signature Series. Until that time, you have access to all the major championships. You'll have access to the players. Go have at it like everybody else and fight your way onto it. The fact that the two images from this year that are totally like burned into my memory is Brooks sitting all day at Harbor Town waiting for someone to withdraw, and just being on his phone at that like patio table was amazing for the storyline of like, hey, like there's a price to pay, and in order to get back to the top, we're just not letting people walk in. I hope they stick to that price when it comes to Bryson and Rahm. And I think what you brought up is certainly a very, very simple and easy to explain pathway with which to do it. And then the fact that he played Myrtle, that gives the tour even more leverage to say, hey, look what Brooks did. He's a 5-time major champ. Look what he had to go through. And I think the longer those guys wait over there, I think the more likely they are to end up in the Challenger Series. And wouldn't that be great for those events?
Well, that's the whole thing. That gives credibility to that series once you start injecting the names that people know and potential very high-end players that go along with it. Can you imagine? It would be Bryson, Neiman, and Cam Smith are at the Puerto Rico Open. People would go to that event. People would tune into that event.
Absolutely. And I think about somebody like last year. The first one that comes to mind is like Sahith Theegala. Like Sahith had an injury plagued year, and he kind of lost his status in all of these big different events, and he had to qualify his way back in. Guys that are like really good names are going to bounce down from time to time. Those guys are going to become pretty much stars of that tour. I think it's also going to help their brand in some ways for us to get to know them better, because they're going to be favorites on the betting board. They're going to be the subjects of storylines and website articles and all sorts of feature articles. Listen to the look at Sahith's story from the last 12 months. They could be documentaries that are done by the PGA Tour. There's all different sorts of what I think are unintended positive consequences of what can come out of this, from a promotion of the tour and giving the tour more genuine storylines rather than this manufactured where we are this week. A long-standing event on the PGA Tour that's run really, really well, that the players love because of the travelers. It was taken off life support, but it's on a golf course that's outdated, and it's got 72 players. They're all going to play all 4 rounds. We know who they are. It's kind of like blah, 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 which is the reason why we're having so much fun talking about this in the future, because it wipes all of that away. And then now there's you and I, if given our dream case scenario, would love to sit around every Friday afternoon and go through a cut sweat.
Yes.
With full production capabilities, and just looking at every person on the golf course, and me running over to a big screen and being look on the 7th hole at this guy. I mean, that would be the ultimate theater of content for you and I and our brains to just work together and try to put together all these pieces of the puzzle. That's what we love. We love all of that. And I think the great news from today is that we're almost going to get twice as much of that, because at the championship series level, cuts are coming back. And we're going to get a whole other tour that is meaningful, that is not Corn Ferry, that has good enough players that we're going to want to wager on, and it's going to be very good. And that'll have a cut. And we're going to have all of these storylines come together on a week-by-week basis. The season's going to be truncated. It's going to be a lot of fun. And if you're worried about scarcity, they were still very happy to tell us that there's going to be 47 weeks of events on the PGA Tour. So have at it there too.
This turned out better than what the initial reports were when you and I were talking, especially when they ran back what the signature series was this year into next year. It really got my hopes in the toilet of how this would look out. So maybe it's my lowered expectations now. See this, and I'm like, okay, I can see how this can work. I can see how this is fun for us. Even you just saying the cut sweat, we could do the cut sweat live. You talk to your guys at Golf Channel, because I'm sure that they'll still have rights. They're definitely going to have the rights to the Challenger Series events, or Lord knows who else is going to have that. But they'll have those sort of rights. Maybe we do it on digital. But could you imagine the dual cut sweat? Hey, here's what's going on at event 1. Here's what's going on at event 2. Boom.
I mean, honestly, heads exploding. Just steam coming out of the ears, 2 big boards. You're looking at 2 different, Friday contests. Maybe it's like a 6-hour cut sweat show, Pat, because one's on the East Coast and one's on the West Coast. We just go one from one right into the other. The U.S. Open had a great cut sweat down to the end on Friday night. I mean, it just every week the Friday nights could be made so much more compelling on digital platforms than they are. I mean, they are at the tournament venue when I'm running around here, but they could be made so much more compelling. And I mean, now we're going to have twice as much fun. My mood coming into the Travelers after a long week with the U.S. Open, and, the way the schedule got kind of ramrodded together this year, and I've been on the road 9 of the last 12 weeks, my mood was kind of melancholy, like the weather driving up here yesterday in the pouring rain. And I was like, oh, here we go. Same 72 guys, Groundhog Day, blah, blah, blah. And then, for all its flowing robes and trumpets and everything, the PGA Tour, by all means, today was a very positive release of information for our industry, and I couldn't be more excited about it, just like you.
Rory backed off his glorified Corn Ferry Tour comments pretty quickly here today. Today's announcement is a positive step for professional golf. As more details emerge, it is encouraging to see the PGA Tour reaffirming the importance of meritocracy and creating a structure that will serve both players and fans well into the future. I've always been proud to compete around the world, and the collaboration between the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour is one founded in the betterment of the game globally. The commitment to elevate some of these historic international tournaments and national opens is incredibly important for the game, something I'm very supportive of. Over the past few years, golf has faced a period of uncertainty and division, which has not been in the best interest of the players or the fans of the game. Today, we are putting fans first, and I'm excited about the future of our sport. Zero chance a PR firm did not write that for him.
Well, oh man.
So does that mean? So when we just hold on one second. When we think about, he mentions the DP World Tour. He mentions the collaboration with historic national tournaments. This leads me to believe we're getting the Irish, South African, Australian, and maybe they call the Zozo the Japanese Open or something like that. That's all the places where Liv did well. Expect to see like an international Open there now.
Yeah. I mean, you threw the dart and it hit the bullseye. I mean, that's essentially what I was led to believe. I jumped on the Canada thing or the Mexico thing because those have been partners of the PGA Tour. And from what I understand, they want to be a very big part of the championship series. It's not going to, there's 24 spots or less than that. There's like 18 spots for these champ series, season long events. So some are going to get cut. So they're already giving themselves a window in the fall. And I mean, it certainly makes sense when you start to talk about Australia, the Irish Open, and of course the South African Open, because all of those take place kind of in that window. And those are going to be almost standalone events. They're going to be events where, guys can go and they can earn their way, toward the championship series. But the guys that have already locked up champ series for the next year, they're basically going to those places like Xander and Colin go to Zozo every year, or I'm sorry, Bay Current Classic every year, to kind of support their heritage and, for lack of a better term, we'll say it, grow the game.
Yeah, sure. And I'm sure that some of them want to go play in those events sometime too. And there's still going to be world rankings points. So if you're not currently in the Masters, someone's going to go pull. Now Ryan Gerard doesn't have to go to Mauritius. He can play in the Joburg Open, which I think he did anyway.
Yeah, well,
now we can play in the New Zealand Open the week after that.
Well, the Rory comments, came out this morning, and it was very interesting. Hall of Fame media journalist Doug Ferguson from the AP. First question for Brian Roloff. Hey, Rory last week said this is a glorified court. Like, what would your response be to fans of golf about what he said? And basically that statement there, the first thing Brian said was, it's funny, I talked to Rory this morning. And then, of course, that PR statement comes out. So I think I think it takes a little time. They get everyone on the same page. And hey, at the end of the day, guess who showed up this morning? First guy to walk out, Tiger Woods. Pretty good.
He looked less puffy. I'll give him that.
Something interesting that I noticed, and I'm always looking around rooms and stuff like that. But so he comes up, he introduces Brian. Great, right? He walks off to the side. He's standing there with all the rest of the vice presidents and executive vice presidents of the PGA Tour. And he was standing up straight, tall, erect, looking very proud, big smile on his face. Guy looks good, looks healthy, all the above, checking the boxes, right? About 10 minutes into Brian's talk, and then the Q&A starts up and everything, he went over to like a little bit of like a tabletop, and he started to lean on it. And I was like, man, that's kind of a bummer. Like you'd like to think he could stand in place for like a half an hour, but he literally can't. I looked over and I was like, oh man, that's too bad. Like this guy must still be in a lot of pain when it comes to like his injuries to his leg, because he was definitely leaning on his left. And then at some point he had to go lean on something, and he was kind of leaning on his arm and his left side and everything. And he was kind of a little bit more like kicking back to take some weight off of his feet. But man, if the big cat's back, it's always good for golf.
Someone pointed this out to me, and I thought it was interesting because I hadn't considered it this way, that Wyndham Clark got all the shit that he got at Shinnecock Hills for different reasons. One, he's running away at a tournament they paid to go see. That sucks. They would like to see the gap close. People in general just don't like Wyndham Clark. That's just a part of it too. He's sort of a villain and doesn't realize he's a villain. The crowd itself is kind of like that, but no one gives Tiger shit about anything. And I think it comes from newer fans, is that anyone who's been around to watch Tiger do what he did, just no one's ever going to give him shit. It's just not going to happen.
Man, I mean,
could you imagine showing up to a golf course and Tiger got booed? That seems impossible, no matter what he does.
Never. I can't. I mean, I just can't. But I mean, I'm one of the few people that's out in the media center week out. I mean, if you go back to the U.S. Open, even the majority of the people that are in there, even the most popular people that are talking heads, they weren't watching golf when Tiger was at the height of his power. You know, he was a brutal interview. He never gave the media any time. It would be interesting to see if podcasts and social media and everything surrounded him at that time, how he would have handled it all and how his image may have changed, or maybe how it would have evolved over time. But man, I mean, he was the toughest person to get in touch with of anyone in the whole sport. And it would be interesting to look at that. You know, just most people aren't aware of what it was like when Tiger was Tiger.
Well, there weren't all these outlets, so it's a lot like Scotty in a weird way. That you get to talk to Scotty all the time, you get to have comments about Scotty, and what Scotty's like the most boring guy on earth. That's how Tiger would have seemed unless someone was really digging in to what he was actually getting up to. Maybe that would have been the knock on Tiger, except he won everything for so long that there's just a different level to it all. That when you're witnessing one of the greats of all time in real time, and you know it, that carves you out a certain status that just never really goes away.
Yeah, I mean, I really don't know what to say. Without the advent of social media in that time frame and all the coverage that the players are a part of now. I mean, think about all the different players like a Rory that embrace all of that coverage, and they're going on and doing these interviews with smaller media outlets, and they're opening up more and everything. I guess having been so intimately tied to Tiger for so many years and working and kind of living where he lived in his golf community for all that time and getting to know him when, the entire world was transfixed on him. I certainly can't ever fathom him bridging that gap, but look how much he's changed since then anyway. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the world has changed so much. Maybe he might have changed. I don't know. It's tough to say. Like that's definitely a good pod for the fall, maybe on an off week.
Yeah, well, let's
try to put it all in perspective.
Blueprint for schedule, Tiger retrospective. We'll keep writing these down for what we're going to do in November. And until 2 years from now, we actually have international series events, which is pretty cool. Very quickly, before we get into the Travelers picks, I did want to... You said that we probably have 17 events unaccounted for the championship series, and some of them don't even exist yet. But I think we could pretty much pick some of these off if we had to go through them. Would you say Torrey Pines? Yes, right?
Yes, it seems like Century is their friend in that regard. Torrey, I think you're definitely going to get Phoenix
and Pebble and Riv. There's 4.
I think you'll definitely get Riv,
but maybe later in the year.
So it's interesting. In 2028, Riv has a huge problem. It's the Olympics. So Riv may be further down the line, and maybe they rotate between Torrey and Riv. I'm not quite
Torrey,
sure.
Riv.
Again, I don't know enough about that, so I shouldn't even speculate. But
what was the old one? Sherwood Forest or something? Where
Robin
Hood lives?
Errol Flynn, yeah. That's why it's called Sherwood, is because the original Errol Flynn Robin Hood movies were filmed there. But
there we go.
Thousand Oaks, right? California. I think you're definitely going to have Bay Hill. You're obviously going to have Doral. You're going to have, I'm not even going to mention the players, but you're going to have that. You're going to have Harbortown. You're going to have Quail Hollow. So you start penciling some of these in, you're going to get to 17 pretty quick.
That's 8. And I would guess Colonial keeps its spot due to its history and being in Dallas is pretty helpful, I would think. If they're going to keep one of the Dallas events, that's one of them. I think the Canadian...
that might hurt the Champions Tour, not the Championship Series, but the Champions Tour, because Charles Schwab is such a big benefactor and supporter of that tour, the Over 50 Tour. And if Charles Schwab wants to maintain the Charles Schwab Challenge there at Colonial, they're up for $30 million for 1 week every year. It'd be interesting. There's so many storylines like that they're working with, which you can start to understand. I don't get why we can't have cuts next year, but I do understand how complicated it is to try to come up with this actual schedule with all the moving parts and the contracts that are probably already in place with a number of these different sponsors.
So that's 10 if we include Canada. I would say Scotland probably keeps its spot. The two playoff events will keep their spots. So that's 13. Maybe the Wyndham Championship.
Well, they basically said that they had like 10 to 12 worked out already, and then now they're looking for the big markets for the rest of them.
Okay, so we're right around there. So whether it be Canada, Wyndham, 3M, this week for the Travelers, like one or two of those will stick, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, you got the local question. They were like, could you tell us where the Travelers is going to be in 2 years? And, they got a very nice answer, and that the Travelers does everything right with their event that we're looking for in a signature series, which I think is they have the right check amount. So, like, that's basically what I read between the lines. But, the players don't mind this event. It's not a hard golf course. The fans come out. The fans are very supportive of this. The community is very supportive of it, and it's a super small market, much like a Harbor Town or an RSM or whatever. So there's an intimate feel to it. I think the players feel comfortable. I think the golf course is easy enough, and they get a ton of support here. And the money's here, and man, Travelers just rolls out the red carpet for these folks.
The Travelers Championship. Now is the time. This is the place. Every star, every round, every shot that makes your heart race as legends walk the fairways. Keegan Bradley, Scotty Scheffler, Tommy Fleetwood, Justin Rose, Cameron Young, Xander Schauffele, Colin Morikawa, and other PGA Tour greats, all battling to be called champion. See the world's best for all 4 days. No cut! You'll feel the pressure before the shot, the roar when it drops. You'll stand close enough to see it all, the intensity, the focus, the moment when everything comes down to mere inches, and where everything makes you feel part of the moment. It's golf at its best, up close, open to all, and only here. The excitement starts June 24th and runs through June 28th at TPC River Highlands in Cromwell, Connecticut. For tickets and information, visit travelerschampionship.com. Now is the time. This is the place. You know what's annoying? Thinking you got your finances lined up, then some random thing pops up and throws everything off. That's why I've been checking out Cash App. It's not just for sending money anymore. Cash App does more than you think when it comes to having your back and making sure your money stays your money. Cash App just released a new status program for the way people actually spend called Cash App Green. Now, when you spend at least $500 a month with a Cash App card, you earn green status, which unlocks benefits like up to $200 of free overdraft coverage. If you overdraft unexpectedly, there are no hidden fees. You also unlock higher borrowing limits and custom personalized cashback offers every Friday at places you love to shop. Turn everyday spending into status with Cash App Green. Download Cash App today or visit cash.app to learn more about this and other financial benefits. New Cash App customers can earn $10 if they use code CASHAPP10 in their profile at sign up and send $5 to a friend within 14 days. Terms apply. Cash App is a financial services platform, not a bank. Banking services provided by Cash App's bank partners. Prepaid debit cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC. Cash App Visa debit flex cards issued by Sutton Bank. Member FDIC and the Bancorp Bank N.A. Pursuant to a license from Visa USA Inc. See terms and conditions for the Sutton prepaid card, Sutton debit flex card, and Bancorp debit flex card. Cash App Green features savings, direct deposit, roundups, overdraft coverage, and discounts provided by Cash App, a Block Inc. brand. Visit cash.app/legal/podcast for full disclosures. Let's get to some picks and what's going on up at the Travelers. You're there on site. It's raining right now.
It is taking a break from the rain at this moment, but in my way making it up to from Jersey up to Connecticut yesterday, we got like 1.2 inches of rain up here in the Cromwell area. It has rained all morning off and on. It is substantially wet up here. Now, the water table is a pretty far distance behind where it should be year to date, maybe 5 inches, but right now the surfaces are going to be extremely soft. It hasn't been like at times it's been a pouring rain, but there's been a steady like farmer's rain that just is continually softening things up. And that's obviously the common theme on the practice facilities is that guys are really looking at playing, with a lot of spin control, that the greens are going to be very soft. They're looking towards 20 under. And you remember last year they had that, I think the scoring average was over par on Friday last year because the wind was so treacherous. And that's what kind of drove the winning score down by Keegan. But I think we're going to be pushing 20 under again this year.
Yeah, not a whole lot of rain in the forecast. A little bit on Sunday, a little bit maybe overnight from Thursday to Friday, almost no wind. This is going to be point, click, shoot, hope you make some putts tournament.
Yeah, point and click off the tee, point and click from the fairway if you're smart, and then from there, proximity to the hole. And, this is a pretty, the skill set is so, week in and week out, we're always talking about the skills it takes to win. It's pretty exact at this site. I mean, we know what you need to win. We don't always know who's going to be the one that's going to be able to pull it off. Maybe guys have fatigue from the U.S. Open. Maybe guys just they look like they're capable of doing it, but mentally they're not into it this week. I mean, there's different factors of which there are unknowns. But for what we do know about this event, we know what it takes to win very precisely, and it should make us come up with a really tight list, I think.
Yeah, you need to hit your fairways, you need to hit your wedges, and you need to make your 15-footers. Those are the three things that you need to do this week.
Yeah, and scramble off both sets of lies.
But scrambling has been pretty easy at this course over the years. Like because putting has been so easy that guys don't need to be as precise, I have found, around the green. Like you don't need to put it to 2 feet. You can just hit it to 7 feet and make your putt. Not a problem.
I mean, if there's anything that has variety at this place when it comes to skill set, is that you can get closely mown areas and you can get long rough lies around the greens. Again, the greens are smallish, 5,700 square feet on average. But I mean, guys aren't going to miss greens this week. I mean, I bet you the field average with these 72 players is probably going to be near 75% for greens in regulation. So be ready for a putting contest of sorts.
Yes, so you probably do want. We've seen some bad putters do well and putt really well at this course. I would not classify Keegan as a great putter by any stretch of the imagination. He's won here 2 of the past 3 years. He knows these greens well.
Yeah, I mean, so Keegan takes me to the point of like, okay, so we need a guy that's been good off the tee. We need a guy that's good with his wedges. We need a guy that putts really good. Hey, have you ever heard of Sam Burns? I've heard of him. So. But where is his head at, and where is his body, and where is his brain at after, basically the blender of the U.S. Open and getting that deep into the fray? I mean, to the last few minutes of that entire championship versus a guy like Keegan who comes in not only refreshed, but he cares about winning here, right? Like these guys, when they amp up their interest in an event, it's always amazing to me, Scotty at the CJ Cup. Like, does anyone care about the CJ Cup? It seems like Scotty cares about winning in Dallas, Like those are the little nuanced things that I love to look for when I'm here on property, right? Versus the guys that look like they're exhausted and they're just kind of like, I've got to come go do this thing. It's a signature series event. It's going to give me enough points. It's going to give me enough dollars. I'm in the Northeast. So be it. I'm doing it. When you bring up Keegan, it makes me think of the fact that guy, he's won 2 of the last 3 years basically on the fact that he just loves the crowds and the opportunity to win in New England.
I would push back this year that this has been his worst year in some time. That he's not maybe the guy that he was even a year ago at this point.
Hey, 100%. But I'll just say this much. He cares this week outside of majors. He cares this week more than most. More than TGL.
No, not more than TGL. We didn't even talk about, is TGL still going to be a thing?
I mean, they're making a ladies tour out of this thing, Pat. Again, you know what? You have that list running. After the Tiger discussion, we'll do a TGL discussion. There you go.
Yeah, I want people to tune into the show, so we probably don't need to do that.
Yeah, I'm not interested either.
So Keegan and Harman have really been the two that have shown up here year over year and done really, really well. I don't really have much interest in either of them because I just hate how they're playing right now.
I mean, Harman's not bad. Keegan, you'd have to say, okay, in the last week or two, he's been better, but not great. Harman's been decent. I've looked a lot at Harman, and Harman has been decent. He hits a ton of fairways with his driver, which is an advantage to him. And then, of course, the approach play has been better. I think Harman's been decent. Harman is worth a second look. Keegan, if we're picking Keegan, then it's primarily on the fact that he just loves to play here. You wouldn't be able to really base it on any sort of analytic table.
Yeah, I mean, Harman's irons have gone into the tank, and maybe that's because he played at tournaments that do not suit his skill set. His last 2 tournaments have been Memorial and the U.S. Open, probably not places where he's going to do particularly well. At the Charles Schwab, he was hitting his irons really well, so maybe you're onto something with that. I would just prefer to go with my brand of losers who fire at pins if it's going to be a little bit wetter, and who can actually make a few putts, hit some fairways, fire at pins, make some putts. Hopefully one of them can get a hot putter this week. That's my strategy for the bets.
Well, where do you stand on like somebody like Akshay then?
I bet Akshay. I bet him.
Yeah. Okay. So along those lines, he's been terrible. You and I have discussed this a million times over. He's been terrible since India. Like, he didn't come back with his driver, and then at some point that leaked into his iron game. Granted, around the green and the putter have been super hot all season. We saw that at API when he won, and he gained like 100 strokes with the flat stick. But I mean, at the end of the day, like, we'd be getting behind Akshay because of his course history here, which is pretty good. I think he had one good addition here.
Played twice, came inside the top 5. Just watching him, because I watched a ton of Akshay last week, just watching him hit his approaches in those wind at Shinnecock, being like, oh, I know that guy. That's the guy who wins.
If you talk about Akshay having some good history here, one of the guys that really caught my attention last week from just a ball striking perspective was Sahith. And we all know, the year that Xander won, how Sahith basically had this tournament in the bag. And, I've been one to say, and I get corrected all the time for a number of things, but, if you look at Sahith's history on Pete Dye golf courses, it's better than average, right? And this is another Pete Dye golf course. It's also a place that takes the driver out of his hand, which I think is an asset. But he was horrible with the putter last week. So I'm very interested to kind of hope that maybe he could pop there. I think he's someone further down the board where there's an opportunity. What do you think about him?
I don't mind him. Blickel actually pointed this out to me, that was he just a big benefactor last week of the super wide fairways, that he sprays it so much off the tee that's kind of a perfect course for him because he's great at scrambling. And the putting for him was really bizarre when you looked at it, that from mid-range, he was awesome and couldn't make any short putts. Maybe that's something that actually goes in his favor this week, that these greens just aren't that hard.
Yeah, the bonus putting could be a factor. His iron play was good.
Yeah.
And, I think that's really, you talk about positional golf. I don't think he's going to hit a ton of drivers here. And when he does, I don't know. Sahith is someone who definitely catches my attention. Harman catches my attention. Akshay, it's tough for me to be won over on that one. What do you think about Hovland?
Nah. I don't really ever bet Hovland, so it's not really one of my guys.
Okay, so I know somebody you do bet all the time then, and that's Colin. How do you feel about Colin this week?
So I have room for one more here. I was trying to figure out what to do at the top because the 4 bets, like if we just talk about the bets, the 4 guys that I have bet on this week, I bet on Henley, 33-1. I really liked how he played Sunday at the U.S. Open after Saturday completely got away with him, second place last year. And what does he do, Keith? Fairways, putting, and wedges. That's kind of his thing. Even looking at Colonial, where he won a few weeks ago, I think is a nice template for this course, although I think the driving is probably easier at this course in some regards than it is at Colonial from time to time. So Henley is my one at the top. If you go to coolbet.com right now, click on that PME exclusive tab, get them boosted to the best number in the world. There you go. There's my gift to you on Russell Henley. After that, I bet Alex Fitzpatrick, Akshay, and Jacob Bridgman, 55, 55, and 75, all with 5 places. They do 2 of the 3 things I really want well, and I'm praying that they luck themselves into the other things.
I mean, especially if one of the things you're praying for is the putter. And they've shown success here in the past.
That is. Well, with Fitzpatrick, I just need him to make a 2-foot putt, which he could not do last week. Neither Fitzpatrick could do it.
Yeah, I mean, the Matthew could not hit a fairway. And you're talking about wide fairways. He could not hit a fairway.
What was up with
all
it?
over the map.
What was up with it? Was it like just
I don't know.
No shot shape? He was running it through the fairways. It's the biggest outlier statistically from a player, I think, this year. Outside of like one really bad putting week for a great putter, because that happens, you don't normally see one of the best off the tee players, especially for distance plus accuracy, be so bad.
It reminds me of API, which is another very driver heavy and demanding golf course. And remember, he was horrible at API and he lost all those strokes off the tee. It reminded me of that performance where he had a double miss going. He didn't know what to do. And, you're still trying to play. Again, I didn't say it was a long golf course, but you were going to hit drivers last week to try to take advantage of any sort of length and the roll out there in order to get, the shortest approach that you could into any of those green sites. So it just didn't work.
So I bet those 4 guys, and I bet Nico Echeverria's first round leader at 100 to 1.
Nico Echeverria.
Listen, you want someone who can get hot? There's a guy who can go make 9 birdies at a short course.
For sure. Do you see that Hideki is like 85 to 1?
Yeah, he's $7,300 on DraftKings. Like the lowest he's like ever been.
I mean, that's like Hideki wheelhouse that he wins this thing by 5. Now again, I'm not picking him. I'm not touting him. I'm not saying, but like it always seems like these out of the nowhere Hideki wins always come when he's like over 80 to 1 to win. And then it just happens all of a sudden. I don't know. I just saw that. Like there were some interesting numbers on the board, and that was the one that probably caught my attention the most.
And that has been a method of hitting bets this year. Just look at the guy, like, man, that's a really terrible price. That's a really good price for that guy. I know he sucks right now. But this was the Justin Rose at Torrey thing. It's like, man, what is Justin Rose doing down at that part of the betting board? And I was like, yeah. And everyone was like, who cares? He's not going to win. And then he wins.
I mean, you're talking about a guy who needs to hit wedges good. You got to hit fairways, who's accurate and could get hot with the putter or so on and so forth. And then like Colin Morikawa sitting at 35 to 1. To me, that's enticing.
So at the top, I was trying to give some consideration to who I like. Fitzpatrick and Burns at the top, I think and even Cam Young for that matter, very intriguing. Probably pass on Siwoo, although he is putting better now. And then, it was Henley and Morikawa from that next range because I don't really want a ton of Aaron Rye. I didn't want Keegan Keegan and Harman, like 45 and 50. Yeah, those sound like great odds. I just don't think that they're better players in general than a lot of guys behind them on the board right now.
I mean, you and I tend to look at the board quite similarly. We might have different names, but the way that the values break out, so I can't argue with that. No.
And seeing Hideki at 80, like Hideki's 80 and Alex Noren is 80. It's like I love losing money on Alex Noren. I would gladly give my money to Hideki to lose for me this week at the same price. It's usually we're talking about Hideki is 30 and Noren is 120. Then I like Noren at the same price. Like it's a bit different.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if either JT keeps it rolling, whether it's Justin or it's Poston.
But
keeps delivering.
Justin Thomas,
how that guy showing up at Shinnecock?
Justin Thomas is simply getting too much credit on the betting board. 24 to 1 is ludicrous for him.
Yeah, so I'd rather see him up at that Morikawa number. If he did, then it would be much more enticing in my mind. I mean, that's a similar style, high caliber player. And I'm certainly going to go with Morikawa.
And we've seen Morikawa do better recently in terms of actually winning. He won at Pebble. He played better at the Masters. And this type of golf course is exactly what Colin Morikawa does well. Fairways, wedges, maybe make some putts.
Absolutely. I may be running short on time here, so you got a question for me?
Yeah, is Ben James, the guy who's bumping you out of here? How's he going to play this week? He's been good.
There's a lot of camera activity going on right now. So
are you going to get to ask him questions here once you get off the line? If you do, can you ask him what the hell is going on in round 3 with him?
I mean, let me write that down. Yeah. All right. I'm going to add it to your rapid fire Q&A list. So right here at the bottom.
Very quickly, we'll do
round 3.
Round 3, yeah. He's been 78, 77 in his 2 round 3s since he's turned pro. And his 3 other rounds in those tournaments have been way better than the field.
All right, hit me with the pro question of the week, and then I'll hit you with some rapid fire.
I was going to hit you with the one and done because this is the last signature event.
What do you got going?
I had Ludwig remaining in a bunch of teams. And now I need to come back, so I'm using him here. Not that I have any faith that he's going to do anything, but I know no one is using him, so I'm using Ludwig.
No, I love that. I do, actually. I mean, I think Ludwig can win on all sorts of golf courses, but I think his superpower, which is the driver, is so long and accurate that he could use it here to an advantage that gives him an opportunity to separate. And, no, I do like that. I have Ludwig as well, and he is high on my list of people that I'm contemplating throwing in the list because I've got to catch up too. So yeah.
Yeah. Other than that, like
Patrick Reed just barbecued me last week.
Yeah. Well, listen, I did the savvy move. You told me John Rahm and I was like, nah, I'm going to use Goddard. Like, could have used no one and basically been better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both of them were
How
terrible.
about all those guys missing the cut?
What's that?
Unbelievable.
Yeah. So
all those guys missing the cut.
Goddard made the cut. He just didn't make any money. So like,
I know, but like Rahm and Bryson and oh man, just crazy.
So if you had
Reed.
like it depends on who you have left at the top. Like if you have one of your studs, this is a big money event. There's no cut. There's 72 guys. Use them. If you don't and you have to go down a little bit, Spawn, Victor, Ben Griffin, Keegan and Harmon or Harris English would be three guys that if you looked at it and be like, all right, if I need to make up money somewhere, these guys have all performed well and won this tournament before. So why?
I mean, Brian Harmon right there. He has 5 straight top 10s in this event. I mean, that right there, that should be some cash for you.
Yeah, like if you need someone down the list and don't have one of the studs, that's the way that I'd probably play it here. But I'm going to be using Ludwig in that spot, and hopefully it ends up turning out well for me. Hit me with it. I don't have I fixed my driver, figured out what was going on. So thank you for the tips. But it was sort of unrelated to all of it once I figured out what I was doing. All right. You know how that works?
I mean, I'm well aware.
Yeah, just you go through your routine and then you start forgetting one thing and then you completely forget about it. It's like, oh yeah, that, and then boom, straight.
Well, what did we talk about? I kept talking about ball position. I was talking about some different like basic fundamentals. The static stuff is all stuff that we forget because we get so worried about the result that we tend to look past like what's actually going on before we start swinging.
And that's what I did. I started taking I brought the alignment stick to the range with me. I put it down and just resetting myself and having like that pressure off allowed me to kind of remember everything that I was supposed to be doing. It just clicked into place again.
I love it. Swing hard.
So thank you.
Yeah, you're always welcome. All right, next week we'll have a pro segment. But for right now, ready for?
I will ask you one thing you can answer very quickly. I noticed that Wyndham was hovering his putter before he hit it. So I started trying to do that when I went to the course the other day. Just like, all right, let me try this. It really did engage my lats really well and got me going like straight back and forth rather than getting really handsy. So I thought I might start doing that.
Sometimes when people rest the driver down or they rest the putter down, the initial takeaway movement is a little too herky-jerky. So sometimes it helps if it's floating in midair that your takeaway then is a little bit smoother. And that's probably the sensation that you felt. That's certainly why Greg Norman has said, many, many times why he hovered the driver, Jack hovered the driver, like they just didn't want to feel like they were yanking it off the ground, that they felt it was smoother in the initial takeaway. And, you can't argue with the results for players like that.
Hit me with the rapid fire.
All right. What's your favorite part of the Travelers over the years? Anything, a finish, memory, a hole, anything.
Bubba Sunday coming back and beating Paul Casey. And Paul Casey got stymied behind that tree, and it was all money for me.
All right. Buy or sell Ludwig Åberg this week?
Buy, I guess. I'm in now.
Victor Hovland, buy or sell?
Sell.
Will there be a 59 this week?
Nah. Always a good bet. Always a good bet saying no to a 59 happening.
This is true. History is working in your favor. Somebody said to me today, "There's like, what's the over under on 59s this week? 2.5." I'm like, what are you talking about? 2.5. Like, how about a half? Ever? Yeah. How about a half? If you could, let me see. Oh, do you like Wyndham Clark?
I'm neutral on Wyndham Clark. People seem to think I hate him. It's just I think he should lean into being a villain. I think it'd be better for his career.
I love it. If you could borrow one skill from a PGA Tour player, what skill would that be and from whom?
I would probably say Ludwig with a wood, and I count a driver as a one wood. So Ludwig's driver and woods are just every time he hits one, it's like, oh wow, look at that go. That looks great.
Yeah, I would take Ludwig off the tee for sure. I mean, that thing's built to last for like the next 20 years.
Yeah, it's such an easy swing. Like, there's no force behind it. I agree with you. Like when you see him in 10 years, he's gonna kind of have the same swing.
Yeah, and hopefully like 10 more wins. Favorite flavor of ice cream?
Cookie dough?
Ooh, I love cookie dough ice cream. Yeah, favorite brand?
No, I eat ice cream like once a year.
Oh, all right. Not an ice cream guy. Fair enough. It's good to know. every 4 years, do you like the tradition of the World Cup better or the Olympics?
Oh, I like the World Cup better than the Olympics, although I do really like Olympics golf now.
All right.
I didn't the first year in Rio, but I've really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it in France.
We'll get Riviera next time.
It's going to be good.
All right. This is probably one of those things where you don't watch TV, but like, are you watching any TV shows right now? Are you streaming anything?
Nothing.
Series.
Nothing new. Like my wife went away like 4 weeks ago, and I was just kind of on my couch, and I just binge watched seasons 2 through 5 of The Wire again because I hadn't watched it in like 2 years. I was like, yeah, let me throw this back on. And everyone hates season 2, but I really like season 2, so I like to start there because the first like 4 or 5 episodes are really slow to get going. You could probably start it if like you've seen it before, halfway through season 1, and season 5 better than I remembered. Still the worst season by far, but better than I remembered. I'm not going to be watching really anything until the challenge comes back in like a month and a half.
Real quick, where would you place The Wire since you watched it twice, or maybe you've watched it more than twice?
Ever?
What's your favorite series all time?
Oh, it's Simpsons.
That makes sense.
It's not even close, but it's. I think there needs to be different like putting The Simpsons up against The Wire doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So if you have like your dramatic TV, and even comparing cable TV to network TV, I think is a bit of a stretch because cable TV can do so much more than what network TV, the confines of network TV can do. Like, I like Mad Men more than I like The Wire. I like The Wire more than I like Breaking Bad. That's the way that I would kind of put those. Mad Men is probably my favorite dramatic series ever.
Ooh. I might say, I really like Peaky Blinders.
Really?
I thought that was really good. Yeah.
Okay, it's Jared's jam.
Call, Keith. Call.
Yeah.
Smart man.
That's a good one. All right, last one, Pat, before we get out of here. Who's taking home the umbrella? Who's winning the Travelers?
Russell Henley.
Your lips to God's ears. I'll see you in a week.
Readtheline.com for more Keith updates coming out on Wednesday morning from the course, plus his picks. You can sub to that down in the description right now. Same along with the Mayo Media newsletter. Have all the stats, the DFS ownership, all of the final bets, all in very helpful cheat sheet form. That'll come out on Wednesday afternoon once I get the finalized weather report sent directly to your inbox, completely free to check out. All right? I'm Pat Mayo. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!